Okie dokie, I am sharing the wrong screen. That's always a good start. So I'm going to take the tool directly from the email just because that's how it will be received. And it helps demonstrate one of the key parts of what needs to happen. Da, 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 da. So if you open it up from the email, you can just save it directly from that, but I just want to demo this. If you open up from the email, it will have the message saying that Microsoft has blocked macros from running. The macros are basically what makes it take other trust data. So in order to get past that, we just save a local copy. I'm going to save it to my downloads because it's a good dumping ground. Save that there, close what I've opened, go back to File Explorer, and then take it from my downloads and open it up directly from there. So that one was the one that I just saved. And you can see no red marking. It might come up with a yellow bar saying that you need to enable content. But for me, it's just trusted it, maybe because it comes from my computer. But the point is we need macros to work in order for the whole thing to work. I'm going to take allocations for our trust. So I have checked with the NHR and they're absolutely fine with these allocations being shared. They don't see them as sensitive information. Obviously, trusts may differ, but the NHR are open to sharing them. So I'm going to take our full last year's allocation and our activity based and our performance. If I do the drop down, I could scroll all the way through. I don't really fancy doing that. I mean, I'm just there, so that wasn't actually as hard as I make it out to be. But I can type in Dorset, and as long as I click on Dorset County Hospital, all of the rest of the data will populate, but we don't have everybody's allocations, so I just need to pop in our yearly allocation, which is 634,799 for last year. There is a margin of error, and that's what we're working with the NHR team to work over. So you can see from the data available, we've come up with 75,107 and 118,682. And just to show you how close that margin of error is, the actual figure is 72371. And 121377 for the performance. And you can see that's now overridden the automatic things, but these later ones still have a margin of error of a few grand, as did that one. What that's also done is it's changed all of the drop downs for the first year to what our actual performance changes were. So we had an increase in commercial studies, an increase in commercial recruitment between 0 and 40% with no improvement on our RTT, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's all changed to reflect the reality of what we got. I can manually change that. So for instance, if I wanted to see if by the end of this year we maxed out everything on just the 20%, you can see that even though I've maxed out everything, our total allocation has not actually changed because we've received such a massive cut in the 30%. But if you unhide each of these columns, you can see each of these boxes show the amount that you're getting an increase, a decrease, or whatever by changing those drop downs. But I haven't shared it like that because I wanted to keep it simple. Um, Okay, so that means that for every later year, each of these drop downs will reflect a change. Let me just look at something. Oh, you've got the if is blank. Oh, tell me that's not the copy I sent to you. That's annoying. Let me just clear this out.
No, I can't see that formula. Oh, yeah, I can.
Yeah, I just want that. There we go. Bugger. Well, I'm sorry, I sent out the version which had the same rule in the first box than every other box. Didn't mean to do that. So yeah, anyway, as you can see, and I'll make sure to send out this version. God, that's annoying. Every time you change the drop down to see what your allocation might be, it changes the 20% performance allocation. That first one doesn't change because obviously we've populated that box, which is overriding it. Make sense? Um, anyway, part of the key thing that this tool is useful for is identifying your recruitment. So we received a massive cut in our 70%. So if I look at recruits needed, it shows us in the funding year 26-27, which is next funding year, we would have had to receive, we would have had to get the equivalent of 272,000 ABF points in order to break even. We actually received about 65,000, which is obviously quite a lot less. And the reason that this doesn't give you the time span is because that's all financial years prior to 2025. So it's the 3 years data leading up to 2025, April 2025. Um, what that does mean for us that this tool has helped identify and where I think this might be useful for strategic planning is in the last quarter of this financial year. It has our current ABF points, and it has the amount that we need to break even for um, next financial year, if that makes sense. And then it basically subtracts that and tells you how many recruits in each field that would actually require. So these are mutually exclusive. 2,466 is the equivalent of 1,212 small interventional recruits. But we know there's no way in hell we're going to get that in one quarter. So we know we're going to receive 2 years of cuts. Following that, in order to make a difference to 28-29's budget, um, in the year 26-27, assuming nothing changes, which is a big assumption, and we'll get back to that in a moment, in 1 year, we would still need to do, or 1 year and one quarter, we'd still need 1,277 small interventional recruits. We're a small DGH, it's not going to happen. We can write off that year as well and say we're going to get 3 years of cuts. And on the front sheet, that tells you what that looks like. So we know that by 28-29, our budget allocation, if nothing else changes, will be 510,000, down from 634,000 this year. So that then leaves us with how do we make a difference in 29-30? That's the first time that we've got 3 financial years in the future that we can actually recruit to, and we've got no current ABF points. So that's 1,253 small interventional participants in those 3 years. That's a bit more realistic. So that sets us our minimum target. Now, I'll touch briefly. This is not, this tool can't obviously predict the future. So there's a few things in your strategic decision making that you need to take into account on what you can't change and what you can change. Whoops. What you
Excuse me,
can't change
Lisa.
is obviously the national budget. You can't, so if that decreases, this will get harder. What you also can't change is the number of recruits that other sites get. So if other sites increase their recruitment, which is very, very likely, then this target will only increase. So that's why we've treated this as an absolute baseline, not a not a like a goal that we can reach and then relax. We've treated it as like this is our minimum for the next 3 years, and that will still only make a difference in 2930. And what you can't change are innumerable other things like inflation, etc., etc. I'm not going to list everything. The list will be exhaustive. But I just want to highlight that because this is all based on the number of recruits historically, we can't change if that number increases, this number will increase. And I've not obviously built that in because that would be putting your finger in the air and guessing. So it's just a good tool. It's a tool to basically try to start to visualize what your targets may be. So I think that covers the functionality of the tool and also the margin of error, and also the disclaimer that this obviously isn't going to be a calculator for exact figures. It's just to give a bit of context to where you are and where you're going. One thing I will emphasize before I stop recording is the reason that this tool has been particularly valuable for us is because if we received a cut in the 20%, but not the 70%, that would be recoverable within 1 year. Because our cut has been entirely in the 70%, that's why we know that unless the model changes, which is another thing we can't change, whether the model changes, unless the model changes, we're facing 3 years of consecutive cuts. Okie dokie. So hopefully that was useful to anybody. I'm going to stop recording unless anybody has a question that they think is relevant for the recording. Nope. Okay, stopping recording now.